All right, people. Here we go. This is another great episode of the film review. Movies, music, culture, and whatever else comes to our minds. We are the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
I'm Tracey.
And we review culture in movies, music, politics, and society. So we have two movies that we're reviewing today. The first stars the strong brother David Banner.
Right.
And the other is the true story of the rock and roll band Queen. Okay, so let's start with the movie Never Heard, starring David Banner. Okay, so we're gonna get to the acting later. Let's turn this around because you know this is always brought to you by Black Ice, you know. The Black Ice Chronicles that we produce. But let's talk about the production itself, where it has to do with storytelling, film grammar, and such as that. Okay, let's start out. First of all, what is film grammar? You know, in film, there's a certain way that you go about telling a story, right? And so, you know, and so there are ways that you can break that particular formula when you have it mastered down to a science. And then there's other ways that when people use it, you know, it's more like a beginning college film project. And so we're taking the acting out of it for 1 second, and we're talking strictly about, you know, the creation of the film itself. All right, so film grammar, there's a certain way that you go about telling a story. If it's images, what you open up with as far as size of images, angles that you use, that's all in film grammar. Also in film grammar is how you go about laying out a story, and that's usually done through a script. In the script, usually in a script, the first 10 pages, which would translate to 10 minutes on camera, you're introducing the various characters. This did not happen in this film. And when I say introducing characters, I mean that you get the whatever the backstory is, whatever makes the various characters move. If it's an ensemble piece, you're introduced to the various characters in situations. Many times less dialogue, more action leading into it, and it may be a few lines of dialogue to introduce each character. Something happens, like when you open up the NWA movie is a perfect example of great film grammar and storytelling. Within the first 10 minutes you're introduced. So the first 10 minutes, the first person that you're introduced to within the first 10 minutes is Eazy-E. And then you see the Eazy-E from the storytelling that he was still into being in the drug business. And you open up and you see how dangerous the streets are, because not only is he possibly getting ready to get gaffled up by the people whose house he's in, but the LAPD comes with the battering ram, and so that sets up not only the Eazy as a character, but the world that the characters are existing in. That's within that would be within only 2 minutes. Then you go and you're introduced to Dre and his situation at home, and his mother saying only $50. And then you see you're introduced to his brother. Then you're introduced to Ice Cube as a student, a scene. He's at a school that his parents made sure he got a great education, and he sees the rich kids driving off while he's on a school bus. And then someone who is red is making fun of Crips, and Crips pull the bus over and get on and tell him stay in school. And he said it's the craziest thing that you would ever see, Dre. Crips telling us to stay in school and good grades, you know. So that within that whole time, you're introduced to the 3 main pivotal characters, and then after that, you're introduced to Yellow Boy and you're introduced to Ren. That's all within 10 minutes of the film. Okay, 10 minutes. So now I just laid out what makes a great film opening. You're introduced to the characters. This did not happen in Never Heard. Okay, and there's a few reasons why it doesn't happen. Why it didn't happen. First of all, who's the director?
Josh Weber.
Josh Weber. He also wrote the script. As far as we can tell by what happens at the end of the film. We'll get into that in a second. Okay. So I just laid out to you what makes a great film a great film. The first 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes before the initiating event happens, and like we were talking about the other film that we saw about the sisters brothers, right? Now the sisters brothers, they set up the characters for about maybe 30 to 35 minutes before they got to the actual initiating event. They would show you who these guys actually are. Like you see a gun battle in the beginning, but that really doesn't introduce you. That may introduce you to the world, but they started breaking rules as far as how the story would be told. And once you know how to tell a story, then you can break the rules. Okay. That's not this film either. Never Heard. Okay. So let's talk about the difficulty before I get to the breakdown of the film. Okay. So we get to the theater. It's playing in Las Vegas. And we get to the theater. It's an AMC theater. And we walk in, and the first thing that both of us notice, but I voice, is that there is something else playing on the screen while there is a different audio playing underneath. So in other words, the person Weber, because it's not David Banner's film. I want to separate the two people apart. David Banner was starring in it, and he was promoting it for people to go see the film. But it is not his film. He is starring in it as the lead character. So we have to separate that first. The person Weber had edited up and had a opening pre-movie sequence going on, right? Different shots and talking to people, and they had the gospel singers singing, right? But underneath that was the playing out of timing, because we go to see a lot of movies, people. Playing out of timing was the spiel about silence your cell phones, boom, boom, boom. So I go out and I go find, first I go up to the concession stand, and the person said, well, try that. So I didn't get any relief out of that. So then I went and talked to a sister that was one of the employees, and she was going to the box office. She said, well, let me take care of this, and I'll go look at it. So if you go to my Instagram, which is Crazy D Film Dude, you see me actually tagging David Banner, because I don't know the other guy. But you know, but David Banner is on Instagram, so I tagged him and let him know so that he could refer it back, so they could possibly get some, you know, whatever they need to do to get people right. Maybe the theater can offer something special for getting something right, because they offer something special at the end of Bohemian Rhapsody, and we're going to get to that in a second. Okay. All right. So as I'm walking in, obviously the young lady went up there and got the projectionist, because there should always be a projectionist in there, even though this stuff is automated today. It should always be a projectionist in there watching and making sure. And then sometimes I think that, you know, things are done on purpose, because we can go way back to, I think it was at a Regal Theater back in Cleveland, and they had the sound real low on an Ice Cube movie.
Yeah, Barbershop. They
had it real low, and then I guess they were wanting people to get their money back, and that was a success, trying to this game, the film game, as dirty as the hip hop game, as dirty as that. So if people are getting their money back, then that means that the first week sales of something will be low. And all I can say is they did it on purpose. And then the cops got involved, and so it was just really a bad situation all the way around the board. The cops got involved, and you know. Anyway, so that's one example. Another example is when we went to go see the movie done about Nat Turner, the Nat Turner story, and the sound was real low. Like you know, during the previews, there's a certain level on the sound, but this sound was real low. So I went out and I talked to the guy. So we have to adjust this because this is too low. I've seen this happen before. When you see it happen before, why is this happening on a black movie? And we know what Nat Turner was about. Let me tell you, white folks, European Americans are upset when you even talk about Nat Turner. I remember we were in a store and the checkout person, they had the magazine on the shelf. I think it was I forget what brand magazine it was. It doesn't matter. But they had Nat Turner on the front, and it was a whole story about the Nat Turner movie and making Nat Turner and telling the story. So we picked the magazine up. Now he was all nice when we were talking, but as soon as we put the magazine up on the counter, all of a sudden he got stiff, button lipped, and got stiff. Like, okay, we can see Rambo, and we can see all these. We can see what's that, Colors, where the cops are mashing up black dudes. If they in gangs or not, they can get mashed up. Nobody says anything. We like, okay, we can still talk about it. But when it comes to something that is, you know, a story where black people are exacting justified vengeance upon those who have done wrong to a group of people, all of a sudden it's all button lip, even if it's a movie that's fictitious. Okay, so with that, they had the volume low, and I said, well, you got to fix this. So we sat there, and he came in. It was an Indian guy that was working there at this theater at the time, and he sat with me. I said, well, you got to turn this up a little bit. And then they turned it up a little bit too loud, and I told them, no, you got to bring it back down. So they went on in and brought it back down, and then we had an enjoyable experience watching Nat Turner before the movie began. This did not happen for Never Heard. I gave preface that to get to Never Heard. Never Heard. So this was playing underneath. So just as I got back into the theater, because I had to find the person that could do it. It was a sister. She finally did it. You know, the brother, I mean, the European American, he couldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? He just couldn't radio on his radio because they always had radios. But anyway, so I got in there, and if you look on my Instagram, Crazy D Film Dude, you can watch it. And just as I'm telling David so he can refer it back so they can get some compensation off of this, the sound comes in, right? But all during the time, so we missed the opening sequence and the opening credits, and all you hear is a different sound. Now I had to step out, but up to that point, what was playing on the screen before the sound popped in? Tell them the part that you saw that was basically in silence because it was something else playing. It opens with what?
Well, the sound, there was no sound, but you saw one of the characters in the film. You saw him get shot, and then you saw his mother, who was played by Candy Beers, she did an excellent job in this film. The cast was just
but
stellar.
We're gonna get to the acting.
Stellar cast.
But we need to stay on the storytelling real quick, because this is very important. It's very important, the point that's going to be made here today. So you see her, but you don't know what it is because there's no sound. So then as I come, as I come in the theater, it's popping on. Then the sound, the young lady fixed it, and the sound is popping on. So she fixes it, or tells the projection, whatever. Okay, so we're there, and so I sit down, and then you're introduced to the Romeo character. Then a character who plays Aaron Davis's son. Aaron Davis is played by David Banner. Okay, so you're introduced to that person, and you're introduced to his grandmother, who is the one who is always in prayer. And every family that is a black family, there's always someone that is in prayer, sincere prayer. They've been around, they're of age, or they have aged up, and they have seen a lot of things, and they are always there, what you would call prayer warriors that pray, not P-R-E-Y, like pray on someone, but pray, P-R-A-Y, pray on someone that whatever you believe in, God, the universe, the galaxy, it will bestow blessings upon that person.
Well, the grandmother, she was played by Karen Abercrombie.
Yeah, she did an excellent job. You wouldn't know, because she aged up for the role.
Yeah, she did. Karen Abercrombie.
Yeah, okay. So so you're introduced to that, so you get a little bit of the story, but you're missing out. But the main point about opening up, even if the sound was there, the setup of telling the story was completely wrong. Like, if you have, there's something called, at the beginning of a film, called the hook. The hook is supposed to get you into the story. Mostly it's more done in short films than it is done in theatrical release films that are an hour, 20 minutes long, 2 hours long. You know, it's usually done totally different than that. That's usually not a hook in a film. You know, that's usually for TV. That's usually for videos. That's usually for short films, because that gets people in, because, you know, most of the time short films are projects that are made by students, and, you know, you have to catch the people, because the storytelling might not be that good. So so the hook is the guy getting shot, which is really a flashback sequence. Now, they tell you in film school not to start or to open up something with a flashback sequence. It's supposed to be in real time, meaning actually happening right then in real time, R-E-E-L, which is a simulation of real time, R-E-A-L, okay? This did not happen. Now, as you see the sequence and as you open up, there is no introduction to the characters. Candy Burris' character, I'm sure that there is a lot of footage that's left on the floor, right? And we're going to get to why in a second, but I want to extend this a little bit so that we can be concise as I give the critique of the film. There is no development or introduction of the characters properly in this film. You don't get to know what's actually happening. There's no drama that takes place. There's the shooting at the end, but then in the beginning of the film, but if it's the beginning of the film, that person should have been the main player in the film. Even in the ensemble piece, it would have to have been the main player in the film. The main character, what the story is about. Though the person who played the person who was shot did an excellent job acting. We're gonna get to acting in a minute. Okay. So basically it's messed up. And why it's messed up, let me cut to the chase, is there was not enough research done on black people in particular and neighborhoods. The way it was written, it was surface level of what you would see in news reports, right? So you're seeing these stories about the quote unquote gang violence in the black neighborhoods, or the quote unquote hood. And if you don't go and do research, they teach you in film school to go do research on what you are shooting, because then that makes it more realistic. If you can tell that a person didn't do research by basically how superficial the film is, and this was superficial. You didn't get a sequence where Candy as the character was. You didn't even get later in the film a funeral, a homegoing service. where you could get to know more of it. It was all service level. It was as if the black people in the film did not have feelings. This was supposed to be Romeo's best friend, the character that he was playing. It was supposed to be his best friend.
So we're not going to tell them.
And no, it was supposed to be his. I'm not telling the movie. It was supposed to be his best friend, but there was not the right emotion cut in the film. I'm sure it was there.
Hey, Shani.
So I'm sure that it was there, but it was probably on the cutting room floor. Right. And my main point in saying this is that now at the end of the film, there's a behind the scenes where they talk about the making of the film. And you find out who the producer is. And I'm going to say this, you know, if you are a black producer and you do not put the script writing, if you do not put the script writing in the hands of a black person, or at least a person that can do research. See, I'm going to be a little lenient and say, if you can do the research, like the NWA script was not written by a black hand, but it was directed by a black hand. You know what I'm saying? But they had all the research and they could actually sit down and talk to the people. The New Edition story was produced by black hands, and they actually sat there and researched, talked to them, and they actually sat in a room with the script and said, I didn't know that that happened. I didn't know that from your perspective. So it's all about research. The film was not researched, but if you are a producer, and a black producer, the producer and the executive producer are the people who put the money up for the film, and you leave your film in the hands of a white person to write the script and to direct the script, you obviously suffer from, in my opinion, self-hate. I'm going to say this, and it's going to be very clear, very clear. If you want a true portrayal of what's happening, you can't go with people who haven't been or experienced the hood that are black to tell a story neither, because they're gonna talk about what they assume by what, you know, they've seen in news reports too, because most often they may be too afraid to go in and get the interviews with the people to get the truth and to tell the truth about what's going on. So it's all the same. But if you are suffering, in my opinion, self-hate, and you will never be successful. And why do I say that? Because just because someone is Christian, just because someone is Christian does not mean that they can tell you a story about redemption, a black story about redemption. Just because they're Christian doesn't mean that they're going to be able to tell the right story about black people. And if you believe that just because someone is Christian, then you have missed the whole purpose of supposedly advancing yourself for the afterlife. And I'm going to leave that right there, for the afterlife. But if you can't work with people who don't necessarily believe exactly what you believe to produce an authentic piece, then you are sick, in my opinion, and you suffer from self-hate. And this is what is wrong with this film. The Weber guy, just by looking at it, it's all surface level stuff. It's not written. The script is not. Matter of fact, when you see the after things, I'm like, I didn't see a script on set. I know everybody wasn't off book. You know, they weren't off book. You know, you always have a script on set just in case you got to feed some people some lines. I didn't see any scripts there. I heard people saying, "Well, go ahead and ad-lib this." Ad-lib? When I do a production, we don't ad-lib, because I have the laugh points written in. I have the dramatic points written in, and you have to deliver those lines and bring those lines to life the way that I wrote them, because I know what I'm looking for, and I've been in it for a few years, you know, and I know, and I watch people's responses to what I do, and the laugh points, they laugh when I say, oh, they laughed. And I remember when we first did with the shifter, when we went and saw it on the big screen with groups of people who didn't know anything about it outside of the store. When we saw it on the big screen, the sound quality booming, picture quality just excellent, and the laugh points, the dramatic points, the points, all there. Just I said, wow, I'm on to something.
But I feel what saves this movie
is the acting.
Yeah,
and
so
let me say this one more time before we get to the cast. So what I'm gonna say again, just because you're Christian and you're Christian doesn't mean that you know the cultural relevance of situations to the point that you can tell it and dig in deep and tell the story from a deep end perspective that only black people can tell. It's just like the Ali film. The Ali film was great. It was written great. It was written great. And Will Smith sat with Spike Lee, and Spike Lee said he knew he didn't have a film when Will Smith said, what can you bring to the Ali story? Okay, the Ali story was great, and it was recent.
Tanya asked, the name of the movie is called
Never Heard. Right, it's in limited release. You have to check where it's at and then go see it. We heard him on the radio with Sway, and we said we're going to see this film, and we went to go see it. So it's not in mass release, and there's reasons why it is not in mass release, because it looks like a college, an untalented European American college film. And you know, I went you know, going through film school and seeing people who are not necessarily the most talented because they have it on the nose. On the nose means, oh golly gee, instead of writing real dialogue that people can understand, it's kind of on the nose, and it's like just surface level, because most European Americans, unless they live in some place like the Slavic Village in Cleveland, Ohio, where it's impoverished because, you know, the factories left and the economy went down, those people can tell true stories. But if you come from the suburbs and you've always had everything, there's nothing that you can tell about a gritty story that is true. You just can't tell it unless you're willing to do the research, and most of the time you're too fearful to do the research. That's all people of all races, so I'm not eliminating that. But however, this film right here, this is what this is about. To me, it was one of those untalented, to me, my opinion, untalented filmmakers that are just doing something just to do something. Just because you're a Christian don't mean you can tell a black person's story. However, black people can tell the European American story because we're subject in it. But how you know that European Americans can't tell the black story is when you have someone like Trump, reported by his once boom coon lawyer, saying that when he drives past what he categorized, Cohen categorized as a rough neighborhood, he said only black people can live like that. That is what you're dealing with when people don't know what time it is. However, if you go to the Slavic Village, people live like that in poverty. The only thing that's separating the black neighborhoods away from middle class or upper class neighborhoods that are in poverty is poverty. That's it. That's the only thing that's missing. So when you strip programs and you strip the economic base out purposely, that's what's gonna happen. And then you will walk past and say, oh, this is going on. So that's what it is. You don't do the research to know why it's like that. When you know when you know why it's like that, when you watch the NWA movie, you know why it's like that, because it's put in there consciously through the voice of Ice Cube's character. You understand what I'm saying? So this is what it is. So that's what it is with this. The gospel singing, excellent. As far as the color matching, The audience was obviously not there when the gospel people were singing, because the gospel people were in a kind of reddish tone because of the lighting. And when you flip around to the opposite view of it, then you see that it's kind of in yellow tone. They didn't color match. That's another thing. That just bugs me, because I'm a person that color matches in the film. And so the reason why I'm saying this is they could have called me to shoot it. This is one last thing that I'm going to say before we move on and talk about the actors. Many people, some people, not many, some people are influenced by what people have, what type of equipment they're using. They got big rigs and all that, and it's supposed to be steady cam and all that. But what happens when you are steady enough to bring out steady cam without needing all the rigs and all that? And then when you see the film that had all the rigs, like when you see the behind the scenes, they had the rig, but I'm watching the film and I'm seeing shaky angle. And I'm like, what is this? This is driving me crazy. They could have called me. And so that's what I'm saying. If you are a person who is in the church and you want to tell a true life story, call on people that can deliver the finished product for you, and it will be a product that you are proud to watch, proud to view, and it gets your point across without being surface level. And those type of people like myself can do it. So when I see a film like this, I'm like, damn, they did that. And if you're Christian, you are black, doesn't mean that somebody is Christian that is European American can tell your story just because they're Christian. And I said that about 5 times, and we're gonna leave it there. I usually say it 3 to get it through, but I'm gonna make that point. Boom, call on people who are skilled to do the work. And no matter if they profess to be Bible-toting Christian, because some of them people can tell you some things in the book that you're not reading past Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now what saves the movie
is the acting.
Okay, let's go through that.
And of course, the star of the film is David Banner, who did an excellent job, because in the theater there were scenes that he delivered, and the audience was like, oh, you know. So the audience was definitely engaged in the acting, and David Banner really carried the film. He did an excellent job, along with Robin Givens, who plays his wife, and Romeo Miller, who plays his son, who also did an excellent job. Both. Karrueche Tran is also in the film, who plays Romeo's girlfriend. Jackie Long is in the film. Brian J. White is in the film. Dorian Wilson is in the film. Candy Burris did an excellent job playing the crackhead. I mean, you didn't even know that was her.
No, I didn't know that was her when I first finally saw her on the screen. I didn't know that it was her. And I'm sure that there is stuff on the cutting room floor. There are scenes on the cutting room floor that tell that story so much better that would have given her those performances. But we're off that now. We're talking about the acting now. And
Dejan Talton did an excellent job as Romeo's best friend.
That's right. There's a scene in the movie where 2 older men kind of confront them, and they talk about fatherhood and breaking the generational curse. And his facial expression as he takes this in, his acting on that, because acting is all about, in film, is all about the close-up, the mid-angle, and the delivery of what you say in silence, when you're listening, when you're observing, when you're getting something thrown at you, and sometimes it's just a facial expression. Excellent acting on his part.
And then again, the grandmother, her words of wisdom also. She was played by, her character was played by the actress Karen Abercrombie, and her character was very vital in the film. Because she interacted with everyone. She was the glue, and she did an excellent job.
Now the gangster. We need to talk about him.
That was Jackie Long. He did an excellent.
Jackie Long. When the car first pulls up, we're not telling the story, but when the car first pulls up, and he hops out and he's introduced as one of the secondary characters. When he's
Hi, Felicia. We're discussing David Banner's film Never Heard.
Never Heard. When he's introduced on the film for the first time, he is totally believable as a gangster type figure that's out to get something that belongs to him. He is totally believable. However, again, going into what's reality and what's not reality, and there's a scene that comes up where they confront the Dejan, the character that he's playing, and it's out in the open, wouldn't have never happened, and a gangster just doesn't scream. So me as the director, I would have said, you know, bring the tone down and deliver it with more. More. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like, no, that's not how a gangster be, because you know there's people around you out there wide on open, and you gonna scream, and there's pistols. Oh, come on now, that's unrealistic. Would have happened in the alley. So you know, just telling the truth about how things will go down. Okay. But other than that, his acting was superb. But it's up to the director then to say, try it this way, try it that way. Let's move the. So it's up to the director to do things like that, right? All right, so Master P.
Oh yeah,
Master P.
Yeah.
Listen, Master P is an extra added piece in the extra added surprise in the movie. There are cameo appearances.
Yes.
Right? He is one of the cameo appearances, and he is definitely a surprise in the film as one who was just released.
Right. Oh, Gravy is also in the film.
Oh,
Gravy, the rapper Gravy.
Okay, Gravy, right.
Yeah.
So
who played Biggie in the Notorious
B.I.G.? That's
Big.
right, that's right. That's another one. We can get to him in a second. Okay. So but Master P in there, he's a person that's returning home, and they have a program for returning men coming home to be better fathers. You know, because this is, if we didn't tell you and you didn't guess already, this is a religious-based film. It is a Christian film, and so that's what it is. And you know, at first I didn't know that that's where it was going to be. I thought it was going to be that, but kind of find out that's what it is. That's why I say, if you're Christian, doesn't mean that because you're Christian it can translate. Okay, so Master P sits in the circle in the chairs, and he delivers his lines like a real G.
Yeah.
You know, so in the order of acting, even though Master P is probably on the screen for about 5 to 7 minutes total in totality, I say that out of the acting, it's him, Master P, Romeo, then David Banner. David Banner did an excellent job as the person with what he had to deal with, and even in interviews he said that he had to talk to the director and ask him, why would this happen? Let's keep this more real to what would actually happen, right? So even in interviews he had to say that. So that was a nice way. We're not going to necessarily be nice. Let me just tell you the way it is. Dude didn't do the research, my opinion. All right, so Master P, just a G. Romeo, his ability to deliver, even when silent, his facial expressions, his acting is up to par. And then David Banner working with what they gave him. Also, the one actor is in it with the smooth face. What's his name? He plays the lawyer.
Okay,
figure.
yeah, that's Brian J. White.
Yeah, that's right. So he's in it. Tony Braxton's son.
Oh yeah,
is in it.
Diesel.
That's right. He's in it.
He plays Candy Bear's son.
And Karuchi Tran
is also in it.
Karuchi Tran is also in it. So the relationship between Romeo and Karuchi, Romeo's character and Karuchi Tran's character, beautiful on film.
Beautiful relationship.
It's a beautiful relationship that's building. And so, you know, for those pieces, it is worth seeing the film. But if I had it, I could recut it and make it into a whole nother piece that would be a masterpiece in the end. If I had all the raw footage, we could recut this, right? And make it into a piece where, because I know it's something on the cutting room floor that didn't make it that could be in the piece, right? So
But definitely go and see it.
Go see it. If it's anything, it's worth seeing.
Yeah.
It'll probably be on Netflix.
Yep, or
something.
Fire Stick.
Or Fire Stick.
Yeah.
Definitely watch the film, if not for the portrayal, because David Banner does bring a strong male character to life.
He does an excellent
that is not
job.
the stereotype. You know, if it's one redeeming quality in the film, the characters are not stereotypical.
No, not the characters. No,
you know what I'm saying? You know, and that's probably pushed through David Banner and then Master P and then all that. Saying, we're gonna keep this real. It's not gonna be no Conan. You know, not gonna be none of that. None of that. So if that's one redeeming, that comes from the actors. That doesn't come from the director, because like I said, the story, in my opinion, was not told correctly. However, so now
strong cast.
It's strong cast. The acting, their acting, if cut different, would have been a masterpiece. Okay, so now, what would you rate the film that we've been through this?
Okay, so what I would say is definitely see the film because of the stellar cast. David Banner did a great job as the star of the film. Go check out his interview with Sway in the morning. Excellent interview. And then definitely pick up David Banner's CD, The God Box.
Yeah,
excellent CD.
Please.
So that's what I say about the film. So
what's the rating?
I would
come on, let's break it. Let's break it up. Let's break it up. Acting, and then direction, and what's it?
So the director. Okay, so the directing was not the best, but the director, see, the rating for him is just. But for the cast, the director would get like
3,
maybe. But the cast is definitely a 10 cast. Definitely a 10
because it's all stellar cast.
Yeah, I would give it. Standout. Definitely.
Standout David Banner, he definitely gets a 10 because he worked with what he had. Romeo, because of his technical ability, he gets a 10. Master P, just because he brought it like a G.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's a 10. Robin Gibbons, I think there was the scene, the way it was cut, there's no back or pre-set up to it. So it looks like she's over the top. So I have to give her about a 7.5 for that, because it doesn't really follow because there's no story to tell you why she's like she is. So
Dejan Taylor, he really brought it along with Candy Bears, because during the film you mentioned certain scenes, like the one scene, I'm not gonna get a film, but you said, look at Romeo's face,
look at him,
you know, and then you mentioned the same thing about Dejan,
Jackie Long,
Jackie Long.
I have to give Jackie
David
Long.
Banner. We mentioned a couple of his scenes. We commented, the people in the audience, just excellent.
But Jackie Long, matter of fact, you said that David Banner scared you.
Oh yeah, because I heard another woman say "woo," and I was like, yeah, he played that. He had me shook.
But listen. Jackie Long, because Jackie Long usually plays the more easygoing character.
Yeah.
I have to give him a 10+ because he was believable. Outside of the scene where the director could have pulled it back a little bit as far as tone, his delivery and his believability as the gangster character, I have to give him a 10+. I can see more through this film, even though there's technical problems in it. I believe that he has broke through as an actor that can play more than just the easy-go-lucky role. Okay.
Tanya, she asked, how long does it usually take to get to Netflix? I'm not really sure.
I'm not sure, but it's independent.
But I know definitely sometimes with specifically like Cox Cable, when a movie is premiered in the theater for maybe like a day or two or whatever, it'll simultaneously be shown on Cox.
Oh no, so I would say Epix. Epix would probably have this film.
Yeah, Epix, or either like Cox. They have a section on demand for one day premiere type films.
Yeah, they do. They actually do.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's get to from one European American director to another European American director who knows how to tell a story. If anyone has seen The Usual Suspects, you will not be disappointed in this film. Totally different genre.
Or X-Men.
or that's me.
He directed
Totally different genres.
Right.
You will not be disappointed in this film.
Because Bryan Singer, the director, killed it in Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's
right. Killed it.
We are talking about Bohemian, the true life story of Queen,
Freddie Mercury,
and Freddie Mercury.
Excellent.
Go out and see this film. If anyone knows about the 80s, you know that Queen, that greatest hits of Queen, rocked it all throughout the 80s, 80, that and AC/DC Back in Black album. Those are staples. Everything that they did were staples. It's still staples in hip hop today. You still see elements of it, like you will hear a Houdini break, or certain break beats that you hear from the 80s, but you'll hear Friends in music, and I'm a Hoe by Houdini. You'll hear those elements in music still today. That is what this film does. And I mean, from the opening, it's musical. From the opening, there is nothing that you, because rock and roll, baby, when it's done right, because those are two rock and roll bands, Queen and AC/DC. Rock and roll that came from black people, when it's done by the English, who always give homage to the originators, it is always done right. It has that
tinge of soul.
It's got that tinge of soul. That's right. It's got that rhythm. Let me tell you something. This film, from beginning to end, you will enjoy yourself, because the first 10 minutes, you're introduced first to Freddie Mercury, his family situation, why he tries to escape his family situation, how he escapes through going to the club, listening to different artists, how he meets up with the band that would later become Queen,
his best friend.
That's right.
Introduced to her.
Introduced to her, and then you're introduced to all of it, and then you're also introduced to the secondary character, who is not really fleshed out, but comes in introduced on stage as the bass player, because at first they just had a lead, a drum, and a lead guitar, a drummer, and a lead vocalist who decided to bounce with a group that you never heard of in you know, later in life. And then you're introduced to the bass. So in the first 10 minutes, the movie is set up, and then it goes from there, and you see how Freddie Mercury, as a tour de force, pushes forward. Even though he had doubts in himself, he pushes forward in a tour de force and has no fear when he hops up on the stage or when he's negotiating. This is what you see. So, for those who don't know Queen, just go to YouTube and type in Queen. Listen to Another One Bites the Dust, Bohemian Rhapsody, We Will Rock You, We Are the Champ. I mean, everything. And those are just, that's just the little bit. That's just 4 songs in a massive catalog. Okay, so the story, so we just told you the story opens up like that, and then you're introduced to
the cast.
Okay, yeah, let's break down. Let's talk about the cast.
Definitely, the star of the film is Mile Leakum.
Oh, wait a minute. You had it before. Let's get it back.
Name, yeah, because I don't want to butcher.
You don't want to butcher his name.
Let's
get it right.
If you watch Mr. Robot.
Yeah, Mr. Robot.
Rami Malek.
That's it, Rami Malek. You just have to see it, right?
The original, the first time we saw him was in the Spike Lee.
That's
film.
right. Now listen, stop, pause for a minute. Then we just talk about Spike Lee. Spike Lee introduces a lot of people. If you have not seen the sweet blood of Jesus, that is on demand on Cogscape. But if you have not seen that, and then we were sitting there, and I said, this is a vampire movie, people. Spike Lee. It's 2 Spike Lee movies you have to see. You know, because you know the ones that go theatrical, but then there are some that didn't. And The Sweet Blood of Jesus.
Yeah, and Red Hook.
And Red Hook Summer.
Yeah.
The first half of Red Hook Summer, Spike Lee has his young kids filming it, right? through the eyes
actual
of
students,
actual
NYC
students. That's right. But no, they're younger than that. They're teenagers too, high schoolers too, right? So they're actually filming it and learning how to do it. But in the second half of the film, Spike Lee takes over, and I mean, when I tell you that Red Hook Summer has a twist in it that you will never forget. You will never forget this twist ever. And in the sweet blood of Jesus, I mean, the sweet blood of Jesus. You have to see these two films. They're on demand now. You have to see these films. Spike Lee is on the top of his game, even though people are trying to move him over to the side. He is on the top of his game as acting.
And then the sweet blood of Jesus is when we first saw the actor Rami Malek. He did an excellent job.
He plays the butler.
Yeah, he does.
He plays the butler. He plays the house person. Right?
And then from there, we saw him on Mr. Robot.
That's right.
Excellent in both parts. But
as Freddie Mercury.
Oh my gosh, he took it like to the top.
To the top.
To the top.
Totally believable as Freddie Mercury.
With the prosthetics
with
in
the
his
prosthetic
mouth,
teeth.
Yeah.
All that. Just totally
mannerisms.
Believable. Everything. Has it down to the science.
Yes.
Now, you know, for people who are great storytellers, they didn't have to show Freddie Mercury as a tortured soul. Within what he did and the dialogue, you saw the torture, but it wasn't like, oh, woe is me, a tortured soul type thing. It was nothing like that. You have to see this film. You have to see this film. That's all we can say about it, because you have to go see it. You will rock out from beginning to end. And
you will crack up laughing.
You will crack up.
Freddie Mercury had a great sense of humor.
Great sense of humor. And it's all brought to life. And let me tell you something. The other people that they chose for the band members, they look just like Queen. They look just like them, especially the lead guitar player. He really looks just like them. And then they discuss the AIDS situation, and they discuss how he happened to get into that lifestyle that led him there. The people who the snakes, the good people, the snakes, all the people in between.
Now the cast of Queen,
go ahead.
Of course, Rami Malek, but also Ben Hardy, Mike Myers. It's going to be interesting if you can point out Mike Myers, because he also has his prosthetic in the film. So you really have to pay attention to. You're gonna be like, wait a minute, I think that's Mike Myers, because he has this stuff all over his face.
It's definitely a return for him.
It is. Also Joseph Mazzalo, Gwendolyn Lee, Lucy Barton, Aidan Gillian, Alan Leach, Tom Hodler, Aaron McCougar, Michelle Duncan, and Ace Bahati.
Ace Bahati. Go see this film. So, storytelling, A1. Direction, A1. The color tones in the film totally matched. Music, you're rocking out to it, people.
From beginning to end.
And for the young people who don't know, you're gonna watch the film and you're gonna hear things. You say, I hear that in the songs that I listen to today. That's because of the fact that there are certain staples in hip hop, starting with James Brown, that you always will hear in hip hop. Okay. So, and Queen and also AC/DC are two of the other groups, along with P-Funk, Parliament, all that, Funkadelic, all that, you'll hear that. So, of all that, what would you rate this film?
Well, first I would like to say, in the opening of the film, you learn that Freddie Mercury was not only a performer, he was also a writer. Right? So, just watching this film and listening to like all of the music, like you really don't want it to end.
Because also you find out that they were collaborative in their effort. The guitar player was going to be a scientist. The other one was going to be a dentist. The other one was going to be engineer. So they loaned what they were learning in higher education to the creation of music.
The experimenting with the instruments and stuff was real interesting. So you see all of this in the film. But definitely, after seeing this film, I can just about guarantee that most people will check out the entire Queen catalog.
Absolutely, they will.
I would definitely give this movie a 10.
10.
Excellent.
Absolutely. I want to give it a 10 too. And people, we got another event to get to.
Oh, we forgot to first. We have to say at the end of the film, everyone applauded.
Yeah, that's right. At the end of the film,
the theater was packed.
And the theater was packed. Everyone applauded, and so we got to get to another event. So we're gonna sign off for now. This has been another great installment of the film review. Movies, music, culture, and whatever else comes to our mind. We are the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
And I'm Tracy.
And we review culture in movies, music, politics, and society. And we'll see you next time. This has been the film review.